Welcome to the Happy, Healthy Hustle podcast, where we explore the intersection of health, happiness, and productivity. I'm your host, Christiana, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. Today, I have a special guest on my podcast. It's Mariette Frey. Mariette, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, I'm super excited to be here with you. Thank you.
Tell me a little bit, because you have an amazing website and, of course, an amazing side hustle. What is your main profession?
My main profession is I'm a field sales manager for a Fortune 100 technology company based out of Chicago. So that's my day-to-day job.
Awesome.
But then my side hustle is I'm a moving mentor or a moving coach. So I've moved 18 times in the last 23 years, primarily for my field sales manager position. I was a field rep at the time, going all over the country. So I've had just lots of time to explore all different places. So that's primarily what keeps me busy. And I also have a little podcast called Mariette's on the Move, because when I would move from place to place to place, one of my higher ups used to say, "Oh, Mariette's on the move again." And it just kind of stuck.
That is a good name because, of course, you move from place to place, and I assume you're working remotely right now, or are you going actually into an office?
Nope, I'm working remote. So my role has always been remote, which has been kind of neat. When I first started at the company, I was in our headquarters. And then, I always loved being on the outside. I became a recruiter for the company. We went to all kinds of colleges all over the country. I actually had been to Purdue several times. I know you were a Boilermaker. But yeah, so I've always been remote outside of those first couple of years in school.
A fun fact, because I did study at Purdue University, which is located in Indiana, west of Indiana, and their symbol is a little train, they call the Boilermaker. So one of my friends gave me a mailbox that looks just like the train from Purdue. And I put it up outside of my house when I moved to California, where not that many people actually know Purdue University. So a lot of children were very intrigued by the train mailbox.
I bet.
And I would stand at this mailbox and open and close it and look at it. And I thought, this is such easy entertainment. And then some moms told me that the children would say, "Oh, can we take a walk to the train mailbox?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Probably like Thomas the Train or something,
And where do you live right now, Mariette?
Right now I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Awesome.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago. So I spent, most of my childhood. I went to college in Illinois, down at Southern Illinois University. But I moved from Illinois after I got out of college. I moved from Illinois to San Diego, to San Francisco, to New York City, back to Chicago, and where I did kind of the suburbs and the city kind of a couple different times. I would renovate houses with my dad, which was really fun. And then moved to Charlotte a couple years ago. So I've been here, almost 3 years now.
Awesome. So for you, that's probably quite a long time.
It is. And I'm actually considering moving back to Chicago right now. But I typically, when I'm thinking about moving, I go through a framework that I have that's kind of what I use with my coaching and my mentoring. And so now I'm actually going through it myself. And so that's been a total different experience, because I've used it, for years, but I never really had a workbook to work through. And now I have a workbook to work through. So now I'm actually like, okay, I'm going to sit down and write it out and think about what I want to do, where I want to live, and, all that fun stuff.
This is amazing. So I would love to know, what is your superpower, Mariette? Why don't you share that with us?
It's adaptability. I can, to give you an example, the last move, when I found out there was an opening in Charlotte, I have family here. And so they wanted me to start April 1st. And I didn't even interview until March 10th or something. It was crazy. And so they asked me if I could get there quickly, and I basically packed up my house and put it on the market, and it sold within 24 hours. It was a couple of years ago, so the crazy housing market was just kind of starting. And within 3 weeks, I was living in Charlotte from Bloomington, Illinois. I was down in central Illinois at the time.
You're also helping others, and you coach them through the whole process of relocating because you've experienced it yourself. So your superpower is really how you quickly adapt is really how we all dream of doing. We don't really want to have a move that's a nightmare. We rather
Right.
want to have something where you essentially start a new life and have all the joy that goes along with exploring this place and really benefiting from it. That's wonderful. And,
Thank you.
it sounds like your superpower is shared too. And you have this amazing program, which we will talk about in a little while. But I would
Yeah.
love to know, it sounds like smooth sailing, you move from place to place. Has there ever been a challenge in your life? I would love to know about the biggest challenge and how you overcame it.
Oh, I've had lots of challenges. Um, I think probably the biggest challenge, if I'm taking a step back in regards to relocating, I came from Chicago, and Chicago is a very family oriented town. And when I wanted to move to California, everybody thought I was crazy, and we had kind of a rubber band radius around my grandparents on both sides, right? So everybody lived kind of within a 30-minute window of them. And it was one of those things where I was like, how do I tell them that I want to go and leave them, but I'm not leaving them. I just want to go and see and explore. And we didn't really have the internet. I mean, the internet was kind of just born in, like the late 90s. I left in 2002. So it was still very much like, don't believe what you read on it. And so one of my biggest challenges, I mean, originally going out there, and mind you, my parents supported my dream of moving to California, but they didn't want me to go. My dad is very protective, and, he's like, well, I'll go with you. And so the movers come and they, pick up my stuff and they say, okay, you have 2,000 pounds worth of stuff. And I said, okay. And we decide we're going to drive. He wanted to go see the Grand Canyon. He had tried once before, and for whatever reason, those plans fell apart. So we're, on our way to Arizona to kind of take that route to San Diego. And I get a call from my movers. And I said, oh, are you calling to tell me that, you guys are ahead of schedule, being the optimistic person I am? And he goes, well, no, actually, I'm at a way station in Yuma, Arizona. And it turns out you have 2,000 more pounds than we anticipated. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, oh, yeah. We must have weighed the truck wrong the first time. And I said, well, that's impossible. Like, I don't have a car that you added to it. I had like a bedroom set, some books, and like my clothes, which I do have a lot of shoes. So, I mean, I was thinking like, but no. And so I took their phone. And so I said, what do I do? And they said, well, you need to send us you need to wire us another couple $1,000s. And I was like, I don't have another couple $1,000s. Like I had kind of just saved enough to like get there, put money down on my apartment, live for a month or two. I was starting a new job like a week later. And so at the time I had found them through the Better Business Bureau. And so I called the Better Business Bureau. I said, what do I do? And she goes, well, call the FBI. And I was like, you call the FBI. Like, what are you talking about? And she goes, oh, no. They have a, Department of Transportation has a whole, fraud and scam logistics type department, and you call them, you open a case, and then they call you. So we had to go. I did get an FBI agent assigned, and we had to go to the weigh station. We had to pull all my stuff off the truck, and they reweighed the truck, and then we put all my stuff on, and the FBI agent helped me. And then it turns out I only had 1,500 pounds worth of stuff, and they charged me for 2,000. So I not only got money back, but they followed us to San Diego. And when I got to my new apartment, somebody had been squatting there. So it was like, this was my first moving experience. My parents, they never said like, see, I told you so, but it was like my first time when I was really like, man, I need to keep track of what's happening, because I know I'm going to want to move other places in the world. And, this was kind of my big first time I ever had like a really big deal happen. So that was probably my biggest challenge, but I've been moving since, and I've learned every time.
Wow, what a story.
Oh, it's crazy.
And it would have been so tempting to say, you know what, I'm just going to wire you the money.
Well, yeah. I mean, they were holding it hostage. There was literally nothing I can do. They said, you want your money or you want your stuff back, you're going to wire this money in the next 24 hours. And I said, well, where do I even wire it to? I don't even know. Like, I had never even done any of that. So, but yeah, a lot of people pay the money, and I'm very, when I need to challenge somebody, I will, but I always make sure that I do it in the right way. So it was a little comforting having an FBI agent call them first and say like, no, it's not really what's going to happen, because they were threatening to leave my stuff there.
Yeah,
It's
and
crazy.
of course that was, when did you say that was? That was
2003.
2003. So here we are 20 years later. So those $2,000 probably now have turned easily into 10.
Yes. And the
More than
scams are
that.
so much more sophisticated now. So
Uh-huh. Because
crazy.
nowadays, that they know that it's not that easy just to drive to the weighing station and pick up your things, and that many people might not know how to call the Better Business Bureau, the FBI. So they definitely
Right.
take advantage. And of course,
Yes.
they might not be as business savvy as you are. So this is something that's amazing that you turned this around, because the way that I look at it, you experience it firsthand. And now you're also sharing this experience and helping others
Yeah.
don't go into these scams and spend your money this way.
Well, I
Amazing.
mean, most people would just not move again, and they would just stay put. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I've got many questions to ask before I move again. So, but yeah, that was probably like my biggest, scariest challenge that I've ever had.
I've had a moving experience, and when you talked about the 2,000 pounds, I thought, I don't remember really what our truck weighed, but they packed up our house, and then they asked me, "Do you have any other things?" That was when we moved from Arkansas to California, and I
Mhm.
said, "Oh, in fact, I do. It's my office." So there is still my office on campus where I have multiple other boxes, and I already packed them up, and they said, "So about how many boxes?" And I said, "Yeah, maybe 5 or something like that." I just kind of like, I was like, I just don't know, I haven't finished putting everything in boxes, I'm just estimating at this point.
Right.
And so they just added like an arbitrary number to the weight. And in this particular case, I have to tell you, Mariette, I totally won, because it was not 5 boxes. I
Oh,
think it was like
no.
something more like 25, because it was all
Oh,
books.
I was just
It
going
was
to
not,
say, and books are so heavy.
yeah, it was all, my office was essentially just like all my books. And at that point, that was when we moved from Arkansas. I had just graduated 2 years prior, or 1 year prior.
Yeah.
Everything after you graduate seems so important.
Oh, yeah.
Like the last thing you want to do is open a trash can and dump everything in. I graduated my PhD, and I thought everything is probably something I will need in my life.
Right.
That's maybe
Right.
also an experience that you have when you're moving, that at the beginning, just everything seems oh so important. And then you get somewhere like, why in the world did I pack all this?
I know.
Yeah, so we got to California, and they told me that they totally underestimated how heavy that office would be and how much that added to the truck. But they were super nice about it. They said it was our fault. We should have just picked up those boxes and waited. So it's totally cool, because I think there was a clause in the contract that if they are the ones that underestimated it, there's no charge. So I was
Yeah. Very
lucky.
lucky. Yes.
But again, that's probably the rare case of coming out, on the positive side.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear. So you talked a little bit about your dad and how he helped you go out there to California. But I would love to know, are there any other people in your life where you feel they influenced you and they helped you to get to where you are right now?
Yeah. I have many people that I would consider kind of a mentor from afar. But probably the one that I would say in the last 3 years really gave me kind of the inspiration to kind of turn what I'm doing into more of a business. Cause it really is like nobody's really heard of a moving coach. I don't know that I know there's relocation specialists, but what I'm doing is kind of setting somebody up. And so having like no niche that I can easily just kind of fit into, I've heard a lot of, random pieces of feedback like, oh, that seems like a liability, or, why would anybody use a moving coach? You just pack up your stuff and move. And I'm like, well, it's not that easy. But so my somebody that's been inspiring me for the last few years has been Jamie Kernlima. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she was the one that started It Cosmetics. And she tells just such an amazing story about how, she knew based on her rosacea that she, had a product that would resonate with women. And she was just told no over and over and over and over again. And going into the pandemic and just, learning about myself and, like even just starting a new job, like I hadn't been in a position where as a field rep, I had to prospect or, have a proverbial door shut in my face via the phone because I couldn't even go on campus, or I couldn't go, to the door of these people that I was trying to meet. And, based on her hearing no over and over and over again, and she kept pushing through, like, I feel that way about my company. I feel that way about my coaching, that like, I know we are, we have been a blessing for so many people. So she's really inspired me to just keep going after kind of what I feel is important, and that, either changing my message to get it across so it becomes a yes. To me, that like kind of confidence that somebody else has gone through it and gotten that many no's. I've not gotten 100 no's, but I certainly have gotten many. So I would say she's inspiring me probably the most in the last couple of years.
Amazing. What a beautiful story. And I really love your background and how you turned this around and using this now to serve others. So what is your current offer? Like, how do you help people with your program? Share a little bit about that, because I promise at the beginning, we get a little sneak into what you really do currently with regard to coaching.
Yeah. Well, so my Instagram has a ton of content. So I've been really trying to beef that up because I know my coaching isn't for everybody. But I have a framework called FRED, and it's finances, robustness. So think mental and physical strength, ecosystem, where you came from and where you want to go to. And then is it getting you closer to your dreams? And so what I do is I work with somebody to kind of niche down the dream itself and kind of refine it, because sometimes people will, they want to move to New York City and St. Louis Obispo, and, they've got all these different places that they want to go to. So we go through essentially what the dream is, and then we reverse engineer you into it through your finances, through like, how ready are you mentally and physically, because it's very stressful. They say it's the most stressful, moving is the most stressful, only to second to divorce. I mean, that puts into perspective, like how your brain and biologically how you react to it. And so I think the other thing is going into your ecosystem and like the people you surround yourself with, and how you kind of set up your community getting into it. I mean, I know you and I have talked about when you moved to Arkansas, you didn't necessarily feel like you fit into that community, but as soon as you moved to California, those were your people, right? So that part of it, when you go through a move like that, it's a huge transition, and you can fall into things like the 6-month funk. Like when you go, you probably had that in Arkansas, where you're just like, oh my gosh, what did I do? This isn't me, and then you spend all the money, you've moved, you're in a lease and like all that stuff. So when I do one-on-one coaching, it's really a 6-month program that I take somebody through all of those things 1 month at a time, along with mindset training. And then typically by the 6th month, it's kind of the sweet spot. 6 to 12 months is when people typically move. And then we go through logistics and like the tips, tricks, and, scams to avoid. So, but a lot of the content that I'm producing can be found for free on LinkedIn or on Instagram. I know I'm going to be doing more from a Reels and video perspective, just to kind of document my own journey and kind of what I'm kind of feeling and thinking about in potentially moving back to Chicago myself. So.
Oh, amazing. And of course, now we're all curious because you told us you moved 18 times. Sounds like the 19th is coming up here.
It might be. Yep. That would be 19 and 24 years. So, yes,
like
a lot. Yeah.
And I wonder, is there one item that you take along to every single place? Because I know there are some people that are really good about just shedding, but I would love to know, what is it? Is that like one item where you're like, oh, live without this thing?
Yes. And it's going to sound so vain. And
Nope.
Christiana, I promise it's not.
Nope.
But I have this 7-foot by 4-foot mirror. And I am not even kidding you. It is the most beautiful thing. It's very ornate. And it's a funny story. I was going with my mom to pick up chairs and tables for my brother's graduation party. And at the time, I had already been in corporate America for 4 years. And so I saw it in like a clearance warehouse, area. And I said, and I asked the sales rep, like, how much is this mirror? And he said, oh, I don't know. It's very expensive. And I said, okay, well, subjective. So tell me, can you find out? Because it's just beautiful. And so he goes back and he comes back and he's like, I told you it's really expensive. And I'm like hanging on every word. And he's like, it's $150. And I was like, oh my gosh, do you have any more? I will take them all. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. And it's just beautiful. It's just very ornate. I'll have to send you a picture of it. But it has been crated up. It's been boxed up. It has gone with me to every single house. And there's always some place in the house that's just absolutely perfect for it. So I know, I just love it. So that's kind of like my gift from home.
So if you ever write a book, it should have the name of the mirror in it, because it sounds like it's not like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, but the story of Mariette on the Move with the mirror.
Yeah.
Mirror. Oh my gosh.
It totally is. I mean, I've seen myself in every single place in that mirror. So
Mirror on the wall. Where's Mariette moving after all?
In the fall. Yeah, exactly.
We onto something here.
Totally.
We have all like play on words thing.
Yeah.
I love it.
So fun. So
well,
fun.
how can people reach you? Like if they want to get a hold of you, whether that's learning about your Instagram or your resources, we're just getting in touch with you and they're like desperately needing somebody to help them relocate.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram. Really, I'm Mariette's on the Move everywhere. So Instagram, I'm not really on TikTok a whole lot, but I know I should be. Threads. I mean, there's pretty much all my social media is Mariette's on the Move, or on LinkedIn is Mariette Frey. So yeah, I'm everywhere. My website is mariettesonthemove.com. So easy peasy.
It sounds amazing, and I can't wait to see a picture of the mirror. I might actually post this onto my Instagram when I'm sharing this particular podcast episode.
Absolutely.
Because I know how that is about a podcast, where you kind of like, you listen to them, but then you're like, oh, well, hold on. That one, I need to learn a little bit more about.
Yes.
You know? So
absolutely.
with that, it went by so quickly, but that's it for today's episode. We're at the end, and I hope you enjoyed our discussion with Mariette Frey. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Happy Healthy Hustle. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.